see you guys in the dark.
I grew up going to private American school in a foreign country in Europe, which I shall not name. The school was situated kind of in the middle of a big hill, and even further above the school was something really special, an abandoned prison. Now, as if that was not shady enough, bordering the abandoned prison was a real prison. There was kind of like a wall separating the real prison from the abandoned one. Us being teenagers, we have decided to find a way to break into the abandoned part. We had already gotten beyond the second layer of the wall. There were a total of 3, and the wall ran all the way around with barbed wire in many places. One lunch break, I heroically managed to tear down a huge section of the wall during lunch, but the next day we arrived, and it was patched up by someone. That didn't stop us, though. We climbed on through anyways, and decided to do some exploring. Now, this happened over the course of many, many months, and it took us ages to work up the courage to finally get inside. A bunch of us were doing AP 2D art, and had our cameras with us at all times to get some shot. Half of my best work came from this prison. But one day, an event happened that made all of us swear to never go back. You can see some more of our exploring later on. As I mentioned, we did this over months, so sometimes there's snow, sometimes we're in light clothing. We took pictures of notebooks and logs we found, but I won't post them due to keeping the country unknown. So as months and months went by, we got more and more confident wandering around the prison. We never went in too deep, and we were always scared of getting close to the wall with the real prison because there were always security guards around. Sometimes we would run into some gypsies scrapping for metal, sometimes a random homeless person or two, but nothing ever too dangerous. Once a couple of guys got busted by security, and we didn't go back for weeks. But eventually we learned the schedule of the guards, and befriended the homeless who hung around there, so we were pretty comfortable. 2 years went by of some exploring here and there, until one night a friend and I decided to go there to do some late-night shooting. We dressed up, organized our things, by one of the holes at the entry at midnight. We had videos of us going through some of the sections of the prison that night, but we deleted them out of fear. We never wanted to have anyone know what happened this night, and thought the videos would be traced back to us. It was really, really dark in the depths of the prison, so the reason we were filming was to use the flashlight on our iPhones. This was a little while back, and you couldn't just press a button to get the light on, but had to film something. Our goal tonight was to get as high up as we could. There were at least 10 floors, and almost all the staircases we had found during our daily exploration were sealed off. If we spent lunch breaking one down, the next day it would just be repaired again. The prison was huge, and had many staircases all over the place. I will have access to all the pictures in a few months. Now most of the rooms were fairly large. Each floor was completely different to the previous one, and it was very hard to tell what went on here. From what we could gather, it was some sort of labor factory the prisoners were forced to work in. We found some rooms completely full of shoe soles. Another floor had a long hallway, and each room was vividly painted in different patterns. Some rooms had a lot of mattresses stacked to each other. You get it, a whole lot of creepy-ass rooms with random creepy stuff. Every new floor we explored was a totally new surprise. And it became more and more difficult to find ways to go higher up, but eventually we found it. And that is what we came there to do that night, get to the roof. As I mentioned, this prison was on a hill, so the view was bound to be fantastic, and we thought at night the guards will have a harder time spotting us. So back to the night. Kept getting deeper and deeper, and it just got darker and darker. There were dripping noises everywhere around us, and we couldn't tell if we were alone. We got to our desired staircase as we climbed up. There became fewer and fewer windows until we were climbing up into pitch darkness. I'm shaking as I'm even typing this, remembering the pure terror I felt. Nonetheless, it was the only unsecured entrance, so we kept climbing up. Things started to get really weird. The stairs were in the form of a zigzag with no railing, so you could fall down the middle. To get to the staircase, you had to go through a long and dark hallway. So once you're at the bottom of the stairs, there is almost no light. Soon we began to realize that at the end of each zigzag, there were these holes in the wall. To get through one, you'd have to pull yourself up into it, because it was just a tiny slit at the top. We flipped a coin, and it was decided I was to go through. I wish I never had. I pray to God that I had never had. I crawled through and hopped inside into a box-like confinement with no windows or anything. You couldn't fully stand up. You had to either lie down or squat. I looked around and found pornography splattered all over the walls of this place, as well as tissues and other disgusting stuff. Injection needles were among one of the things there was too, and I believe I have a picture of that somewhere. That wasn't the worst part, though. The worst part was when I took a look at the notebook lying on the ground. The writing was in a foreign language which I could read, and it documented a worker's logs. There was a name followed by a sign-in and sign-out timestamp. The most recent entry was made 2 days ago. 2 freaking days ago. I rushed out of that space like my life depended on it and told my friend we've got to get out of here. While I was inside, my friend noticed that there was one of those slits on every level, and that they were numbered and had a placeholder for a tag. They were cells. We noped out of there and began climbing down. I reasoned to my friend that it's almost 1 a.m. and that we need to go up now before it's too late. We were going to go to a club after this. Teenagers, right? It took me some time after, but finally I persuaded him to go back up and make it to the roof, then leave. We went up and up until finally we saw a light. Delighted, we burst through the doors completely without thinking and began expressing our relief in cries of joy. We felt like we had conquered the worst part and completely relaxed. Everything was going great until suddenly my friend freezes in his tracks and tells me to shut the hell up right now and get to the staircase. Panicked, I asked him what he's on about. The staircase that we had just come from had like a little house over it, if that makes any sense, and he was looking at something over the edge of the corner. You kind of see what I mean if you looked at the pictures. Then I hear another voice, which is definitely not my friend's. We were both these 2 fairly well-off kids from American upbringings, and the man was speaking a foreign language. Luckily I can understand it, but we like to frequently pretend that I did not just to fuck with the locals and spy on people. He was used to me routinely pretending I don't understand a word, so when the man said something, he just stayed quiet and motioned that I keep my mouth shut. Friend was signaling me to get to the staircase when I heard the man yell, "Don't move," in the foreign language. I froze dead and didn't know what to do. 5 men came from around the house thingy into my sight. 2 were standing, the others were sitting on the curb of the roof. One push, and they tumbled down to their deaths. Now these guys looked serious. Pumped arms, sweatpants, bandanas, and for the best part, swastikas on their arms. The prisoner had a lot of racist, general type of stuff going on. This we never expected, though. The man motions to me and yells, "Come here." I nervously tell him in English that I do not understand. I don't know how I thought this would help, but I speak quite a bit of German, and I suppose in my logical brain, I thought maybe they would do less harm to two Germans. By luck, my friend happened to be Swiss and spoke it fluently. The man yells to us, "What language you speaking?" I replied, "Deutsch." My friend looks over at me panicking, desperate to know what our next move should be. "Ah, Germans," and the group laughs. I hear one of the men say to the others in the foreign language, "They've seen the products." The head of the gang looks at us and comes closer. It was really dark, so I couldn't see what they had circled around, but there were black gym bags at their feet. "Come closer," he says to both of us. We come up closer to the group, and the man starts asking us questions in English. Who we are, why we're there. He then started asking personal questions, our full names, where we live, etc. The questions we clearly directed at making it easier to find out as much as we know as they can. Neither of us had money, but we both had our iPhones on. We had no idea what they had planned for us next. One of the sitting guys gets up and asks me, "Did you see anything?" No, I shakily reply. Then he comes to my friend and asks him the same. For a brief moment, I glanced over at the bags, and I suddenly wish I would be anywhere but there. Hell, I'd rather be in that cell than here. I wish we had never come back here. I think you can guess what was in the bags. Guns. Not just one gun, but guns. As in bags and bags of what was probably illegal firearms. In a smaller bag to the side, there was a ton of rolled up cash. We just stumbled into an illicit firearm deal. The guy now started discussing amongst each other about what they are going to do with us. They didn't know that I understood every single word. One of them kept pleading, we're just stupid kids, and if they rough us up a bit, we won't tell anyone. Another one insists they take us to Gustav. I'm happy I never met Gustav. Meanwhile, I was trying to come up with an escape plan. The real prison was visible from where we were standing, but by the time the security guards from there would get up here, we would be dead. The staircase where we came from was pitch black, and we would stumble our way down and probably hurt ourselves. Either way, we end up dead. So I go for plan C. Mr. Ringleader says to them that one of them should walk us home to see where we really live, and threaten us if we tell anyone. That's when I had a better idea. The roofs. We could run back down the stairs, but the abandoned prison complex was huge, and basically many buildings of different sizes all near each other. You could hop down from roof to roof and escape via that way. Just as one of them starts arguing about taking us to Gustav, one of their phones rings, and I take that as my cue. I scream, "Follow me," to my friend, and begin descending down the roofs. Now I know this is stupid logic, but I thought they'd never shoot us. Near a real prison, at least. It's just too risky. Really wasn't too difficult. We just kept jumping on a lower and lower building, and eventually we were down. Our feet hit the ground, and we began running through the grounds. Since I knew it quite well, I knew exactly where to run to escape to a main road on the other side of the hill. I suddenly heard men yelling in the background, and the sound of barking dogs. Security from the real prison must have seen us running, and came to see who was there. I screamed to them in the foreign language, "There's men, and they've got guns!" It seemed they already knew we were not the primary concern, as they ran in the direction we came from, and not where we were going. We didn't stop running until we reached the city center, and we didn't return to that prison. We never reported anything that happened, and have no follow-up on who the men were. Illegal drugs and stuff were common where we were living. Never thought to find guns. To be honest, though, it wasn't the first time we heard about weapons dealing going down. It's hushed up, but not that hard to get your hands on where we live. We didn't go back for months, needless to say. To think that roof could have been the last thing that I saw, or Gustav's apartment. To visualize where things went down, the staircase section is actually half of that tower, so the windows on the left were separated. Also, you couldn't climb up the staircase from the bottom because it would be totally sealed off. So you would have to climb up to the next floor via another staircase somewhere else in the complex. The last couple of floors of the staircase were not sealed off, and that's where we found all the cells. I hate to say that I have another story to tell. You'll notice that it's been a while since this has happened, but for legal reasons, I was not allowed to talk publicly about it due to the severity of the event. But I have been granted permission to speak publicly about it. There's no news story about it, at least, not yet anyway. It'll all make sense, so here it goes. This is going to be a long one, just an FYI. I'm a 21-year-old male. It was July 4th of 2019. I live in Kansas in the USA. At the time, I worked as a corrections officer at the maximum security prison on a night shift. The cell house I was in charge of was the maximum general population. 1 man to a cell. This is where murders and overall the worst of society were housed. Before work, I was doing the typical American 4th of July thing. Grilling, blowing up fireworks, had a beer or two, having a great time with my now wife and family. My wife kept telling me I needed to just call in sick and take the day without pay. I said no, because we were a little behind on some bills. I really wish I had listened to her now. As the night went on, It came time for us to leave my mom's, and for me to go home and get ready for work. I took my wife home and dropped her off, got ready, and left for work. My wife's car was broken down, so she was stuck at home for the night. As I drove to work, which was about an hour drive away, I watched the fireworks going off all around me. It was sad. I had never